Ever since the release of Lorcana, we have seen Magic Brooms make their appearance. From a new version of Makey from Chapter 1 to a broom in shining armor in Inklands. Magic Brooms have never seen competitive play, and it doesn't help that we haven't seen any new broom cards since Ursula's return. That's almost 10 months ago. Even though we haven't seen any new brooms over the past 3 sets, I still play Magic Brooms and found some success with it. At one of my local shops, I played Magic Brooms a couple of times to the point that I'm now known as the Magic Broom player. Pretty neat compliment if you ask me. Makes me feel like a wizard. In this video, I'm going to go through how I would make a Magic Broom deck. Hopefully, this will help those Illumineers that always wanted to sweep the competition. Never heard that one before. If you want to see more off-meta decks, give this video a like and give the channel a subscribe. Anyways, let's jump into the Ink Labs. So how do you build a deck? Well, let's add in some Magic Broom cards. We'll need some draw power, and then we need this. We need some control as well. Oh, this artwork is super cool. This one's always good in this kind of deck, and... oh. Yeah, that might be a bit too many cards. Let's take a step back. Let's go over some guidelines on deck building 101. First, a deck needs to have a minimum of 60 cards. You can go over, but most players like to stick to around 60 for the sake of consistency. For me, I let myself play around 64, since this will let me play 1 or 2 more cards. Second, we have to keep in mind of our uninkable count. Having a high amount will make you struggle inking, making you have to ink some important cards. You might even need to pass your turn a couple times, which makes you lose so much tempo. Here's a little table to help visualize things. If you have 60 cards in your deck, having 15 uninkables means you have a 25% of drawing one. 12 cards brings it down to 20, 9 lowers it down to 15, and 10 cards makes it a 10%. Depending on the type of deck you have, having a high uninkable count may be fine, but for the sake of the video, we're going to stick with 15. Finally, we also want to think about the playstyle of our deck. Do you want a more control style where you banish your opponent's characters and dominate the board? Or maybe a more aggressive style where you play a bunch of characters and just focus on questing, trying to win as fast as possible? Maybe something in between like mid-range where you have a balance of control and aggro. For me, I prefer a bit more mid-range, so we'll aim for that for now. Keep in mind all 3 of these tips are just for reference. You can build your deck however you want to play it as long as you enjoy it. Now that we have that outline, let's get back to the drawing board. Since this is a Magic Broom deck, let's have a look at all the cards associated with the Magic Brooms. Currently, we have 13 different cards that's in this archetype. It's nice to have a clear idea of how you want to play the deck, so that's easier to build your deck as you go on. For me, I'm interested in a Bucket Brigade Magic Broom, which lets you shuffle any card from your discard or your opponent's discard back into its respective deck. In Lorcana, you can have a max of 4 copies of a card with the same name and version. This makes it so that some of the best cards are limited to 4 uses in a round. But this broom has me thinking. Something like a whole new role can be played multiple times, giving both players a new hand of 7 but also discarding their current hand. But what this also means is that you and your opponent has 7 cards less in your deck. This is a term called milling, where you force your opponent to draw cards from the deck to make them run out of cards. In the official rulebook, Rule 3212 states, if a player attempts to draw a card from an empty deck, that player loses the game. Normally this is a normal occurrence since the game will naturally end before a player runs out of cards in their deck. But this could be a win condition for us. With Bucket Brigade, it's possible to play a whole new role more than 4 times to force your opponent to run out of cards. This strat also does force us to mill ourselves, but thankfully we have a great solution. When you play Swift Cleaner, it shuffles all broom decks from your discard back into your deck. Now we have a more clear image of how we want to play our deck. We want to take advantage of a whole new role to get a new hand, but also milling our opponent out. With this in mind, we can start picking and choosing which cards to add to our deck. We'll start off by adding these cards from the Broom archetype along with 4 copies of a whole new world. Since a whole new world is a 5-cost song, we want to focus on being able to sing it with characters with 5 costs or more. We're already playing with 4 copies of Playful Sorcerer Mickey, so let's add 4 copies of Food Fighter Defender to have a good shift target. With that same logic, let's look for another character that's a Flowborn so that we have a better chance of singing a whole new world early. You can never go wrong with Robin Hood Champion Sherwood, so let's have 4 of him as well as 4 copies of Beloved Outlaw. Even though a whole new world is a great source of drawing, we can't always rely on it, so let's get a bit more draw power going. Merlin Rabbit and Friends on our side are some cards Amethyst has to offer with some of the most consistent drawing, so let's add 4 of each in. We don't have a good way of dealing with ready characters, so let's find some cards that will help that. Brooms are known for flooding the board with the help of Wayward Sorcerer Mickey, so Strain from a Raging Fire will be a perfect fit for this deck. Let's put in 2 copies of Grabbing Sword so that we have a way to deal with those white boards. Then came along Zeus as a great tool to help take care of those threats, so let's add 2 of these just because it's uninkable. Now that we have some cards to help deal some damage, we need a card that will help us deal with any character no matter how high the health. Use my Scary Beyond All Reason lets us shuffle a card on the board into his respective deck and that player draws 2 cards. great for removal, and also forces our opponent to draw 2 cards, which goes great for our mill strategy. With that, now we have the foundation of our deck. This is where we will make some adjustment and also just fine tune our deck. Looking at our uninkable counts, we're sitting at 16, which is a bit high, so let's see if we can lower it a bit. We can replace Grab Resource with a new Bagheera, which has a similar effect. Let's also take out 1 Swift Cleaner Broom and 1 Merlin to add in 2 Giant Cobras. This helps us gain extra lore, but also discards any extra whole new rolls in our hand to add it back later with our Bucket Brigade. Now, how can we improve on our gameplay? Let's look at one of the new cards called Show Me More. This forces both players to draw 3 cards, helping for our mill factor, but also gives us more cards to draw as well. This can help find our shift targets, or just make them draw 3 cards if we're going to play whole new roll either way. The issue is that it's an uninkable, but since it is a 2 cost, maybe we can ignore this fact. Let's get rid of 2 Friends on the side and 2 Yen Sets to make space for our 4 copies of Show Me More. This is going to put our uninkable back to 16, but since we only need 2 ink to play Show Me More, in theory it should be fine. With that, we have now completed our deck. It's not perfect, we'll have to play some games to refine it more, but for now it's a good start, so let's go over our gameplay strats. As we discussed before, we plan on milling our opponent out by shuffling whole new rolls back into our deck. This will be our secondary win condition. Our main goal is just to flood the board with brooms and control the board with our songs. First things first, let's go over the mulligan. We want to see a clear path on what we want to play on each turn. Depending on your first hand, there's a couple of options we can go for. Since we're playing Robin Hood and Mickey Mouse, we can keep a copy of any of these and mulligan the rest looking for the shift target. If you already have both targets in your hand, then keeping a whole new roll wouldn't be a bad idea either. The second option would be if you happen to see a Luminary Keeper and Yen Sit in your opening hand. Depending on who you're playing against, this could be a really quick way of winning the game. You want to search for a draw card, preferably a Merlin Rabbit, a second Broom, and the Sorcerer's Tower. Now let's go over a couple scenarios. Wayward Sorcerer Mickey is so good in this deck because it lets us play our Magic Broom for less. If you're able to play a whole new world with Wayward on the field, even with as little as 2 inks, you can get so many characters down. Something to keep in mind is that having a handful of Magic Brooms on the board is always a threat. Even though most of them are only questing for 1, dropping a Sorcerer's Tower can get you an insane amount of lore, since Brooms can move in there for free, letting them quest for 1 more. Now let's focus on our milling strategy for a second. While you're playing the game, it's always a good idea to look into your opponent's discard. Count some of the game-changing cards that's been discarded and figure out how much they might have left in their deck. Let's say for example you're playing against Ruby Sapphire. Most Ruby Sapphire decks runs a couple of Be Prepared Sensisus. If they don't have any in their discard mid to late game, chances are they probably have it in their hand. With this in mind, we can play Show Me More to improve our chances of hitting something good for when we play a whole new world. Timing your whole new rolls can really disrupt your opponent's plan. Just 1 or 2 may be enough to get you the game. And there we go. We have our new Magic Broom deck with 2 different win conditions. No matter how you're playing the game, you're always playing into 2 different win conditions. You can decide whether to go all in one or the other later on in the game. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully this helped inspire some Broom players out there. Let me know what you think of the deck down in the comments below. And just like Wayward Sorcerer Mickey, always go for the clean sweep.